The massive chamber floated in space, a monument to alien pride and ancient power. Inside, Ambassador Giwan sat at the human delegation table and tried not to show her frustration. 3 years. 3 long years of the same conversations, the same insults, the same worthless offers. Across from her, the Maltuvian representative clicked his mandibles in what passed for laughter among his species. His purple skin gleamed under the artificial lights, and his 4 eyes looked at Jiwan with barely concealed contempt. Next to him sat the Recton delegate, a being that resembled a floating jellyfish covered in crystalline growths. On the far end, the Ithros ambassador shifted his bulk, his scaled body taking up 3 seats. These were the elder species, the ones who had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years before humanity even invented the wheel. They never let anyone forget it. "Let us review our generous offer once more," the Maltuvian said, his translator device rendering his words in flat, emotionless tones. "Humanity may purchase faster-than-light technology at 3 times the standard licensing fee. All human vessels equipped with this technology must submit to quarterly inspections. No military applications will be permitted. Human expansion is limited to the sectors we designate." These terms are final. Juan had heard variations of this offer for months. Each time, they changed a few words but kept the same degrading conditions. She glanced at Captain Deho, who sat in the gallery behind her. His face was carved from stone, but she could see the anger in his eyes. He had fought in the colony wars, had watched good people die defending human settlements from raiders and hostile environments. He knew what these restrictions really meant. They meant humanity would remain weak, dependent, inferior. "We've presented counterproposals 17 times, Juan said calmly. "Each time, you reject them without real consideration. You say you want negotiations, but you don't negotiate. You dictate." The Recton delegate pulsed with light, a sign of amusement in his species. Young species must learn patience. Perhaps in another century, humanity will be mature enough too. The upstart primates need to understand their place. The Recton continued, his translated voice carrying clearly through the chamber. "You have been in space for barely 200 years. We have civilizations older than your entire recorded history. You should be grateful we offer you anything at all." Something cold settled in Jiwan's chest. She had endured insults before. Humanity had swallowed its pride countless times in these negotiations. They needed FTL technology. They needed access to galactic trade routes. They needed so many things the elder species controlled, but there were limits. She stood up. The movement was so sudden that every alien in the chamber turned to look at her. Silence fell across the massive room. "We're done here," Juan said quietly. The Maltuvian's mandibles twitched in confusion. "What do you mean?" "I mean negotiations are over. Humanity withdraws from all pending agreements, all trade discussions, and all diplomatic processes with the Galactic Concordat. Effective immediately." Erupted. Aliens shouted in a dozen languages. The Maltuvian delegate rose from his seat, his skin shifting to an angry red. The Ithros ambassador bellowed something that the translators couldn't quite capture. Giwan gathered her documents and placed them in her case. Behind her, Captain Deho stood as well, along with the rest of the human delegation. They moved as one unit toward the exit. "Cannot simply leave," the Recton delegate called out, his crystalline growths flashing with agitation. "You need us. Without our technology, humanity is trapped in your small corner of space. Without our trade networks, your colonies will wither. You are nothing without the Concordat." Giwan paused at the doorway. She looked back at the assembled aliens, these beings who thought themselves masters of the galaxy. "Maybe we are nothing by your standards," she said, "but we'd rather be nothing on our own terms than something on yours." She walked out. The human delegation followed. The door sealed behind them with a soft hiss in the hallway. One of the junior diplomats, a young man named Kyung-ho, looked pale. "Ambassador, what do we do now? We just walked away from everything we've been working toward." Guan kept walking. "We do what humanity has always done. We solve our own problems." Captain Deho caught up to her. The military is ready. If they try to enforce their will, they won't, Giwan said. Not yet. They think we'll come crawling back within a month, begging to resume negotiations. They think we have no choice, do we? Kyung-ho asked quietly. Gyung smiled, but there was no humor in it. We're about to find out. The human ship was waiting at the docking port. As they boarded, Jiwan pulled up a secure communication channel. Dr. Hunhua appeared on the screen, his face tired but determined. Behind him, she could see the laboratory where he and his team had been working for years. I saw the broadcast, Hunwoo said. You really did it. You walked out. How close are you? Kyuan asked. Close, very close. The simulations are promising. If we're right about the quantum field interactions, I don't need the technical details. Can you do it? Can you give us FTL without their technology? Hyunwoo was quiet for a moment. Then he nodded. Yes, give me 6 weeks. You have 4. The connection ended. Kwan sat back in her seat as the ship undocked from the station. Through the viewport, she could see the massive structure of the Galactic Concordat headquarters growing smaller. For 3 years, that station had been the center of her world. Now it was just another piece of metal floating in space. Daeho sat down beside her. Do you think we made a mistake? I think we made the only choice we could live with, Juan replied. They were never going to respect us. They were never going to treat us as equals. We could have negotiated for another decade and gotten nowhere. But now we have nothing. No, Juan said, watching Earth grow larger in the viewport as they approached home. Now we have a chance to build something ourselves. The elder species had millennia to develop their technology. They forgot what it's like to struggle, to innovate, to fight for every advantage. We haven't forgotten. She thought about all the human colonies scattered across their small section of space. Tough people living on harsh worlds, making something from nothing. Engineers who could fix a broken reactor with spare parts and determination. Scientists who asked questions the elder species had stopped asking centuries ago. They think we need them, Giwan said softly. They're about to learn they're wrong. The ship entered Earth's atmosphere. Below, billions of humans went about their lives, unaware that everything had just changed. The galaxy would look different soon. The old order was crumbling, even if the elder species didn't know it yet. In 4 weeks, Dr. Hunwo would prove that humanity could solve the FTL problem their own way. In 6 weeks, human ships would be traveling faster than anyone thought possible. In 6 months, the Galactic Concordat would realize their mistake. But right now, in this moment, Jiwan simply felt free. Free from the endless, humiliating negotiations. Free from pretending that insults were diplomacy. Free to find humanity's own path among the stars. The ship touched down in Geneva. Jiwan had reports to file, meetings to attend, and 1,000 questions to answer. But first, she allowed herself 1 moment to look up at the stars through the viewport. Let them watch, she said to no one in particular. Let them see what humans can do when we stop asking for permission. 6 weeks had passed since humanity walked out of the Galactic Concordat. The aliens expected humans to return with apologies and acceptance of whatever terms were offered. They were wrong. Dr. Hunhua stood in front of the largest press conference Earth had ever organized. Representatives from every major nation watched, along with journalists, scientists, and millions of viewers across human space. Behind him, a massive screen showed equations and diagrams that few people could understand. But they would understand the results. Ladies and gentlemen, Hyunwoo began, his voice steady despite his exhaustion. Today, humanity achieves faster than light travel. The room exploded with noise. Hyunwoo waited for silence, then continued. We did not steal alien technology. We did not reverse engineer their drives. We solved the problem ourselves, using a completely different approach. While the elder species use exotic matter to bend space, we discovered how to slip between quantum states. Our method is faster, more efficient, and requires materials we can produce ourselves. He pressed a button. The screen showed a sleek ship unlike anything in the galaxy. This is the Soul. She completed a test jump yesterday, traveling 50 light-years in 3 hours. The Maltuvian equivalent would have taken 8 hours and required fuel worth 1 million credits. Ours costs less than a tenth of that. On the Maltuvian homeworld, stock markets collapsed. Their entire economy was built on licensing FTL technology. Overnight, that monopoly shattered. 3 weeks later, Commander Sora led the first human expedition into unknown space. Her fleet consisted of 12 ships, all equipped with the new drives. They pushed past the established borders of Concordat territory, into regions the elder species had marked as unprofitable or too dangerous. Sora was a short woman with sharp eyes and a reputation for getting results. She had captained colony ships through pirate-infested space and survived situations that would have killed most people. Now she stood on the bridge of her flagship and watched unexplored star systems appear on her screens. Scanners picking up massive mineral deposits in the asteroid belt, her science officer reported. Rare elements, heavy metals, everything we need for shipbuilding. Market for mining operations, Sora ordered. What else? 3 habitable planets in this system alone. Another 2 that could be terraformed with minimal effort. Commander, these systems are resource-rich beyond anything in our current territory. While Sora smiled. And the Concordat called this region worthless. Begin survey operations. I want detailed maps of everything within 20 light-years. Over the next month, Sora's expedition discovered something more valuable than resources. In a distant system, they detected artificial signals. Not from the Concordat, but from someone else. The Varani were a species the elder races had never bothered to contact. They had basic space travel, but nothing faster than light. Their world was poor in strategic resources, so the Concordat deemed them not worth the effort. When human ships appeared in orbit, the Varani expected conquest or exploitation. That was how the galaxy worked, according to everything they had observed. Instead, Sora offered trade and friendship. She shared star charts and offered to help establish communication networks. In exchange, the Varani provided information about other isolated species in the region. Within weeks, humanity had contacted 8 civilizations the Concordat had ignored. Back on Earth, engineer Mingji unveiled her latest project. She was a genius in structural design, known for solving impossible problems with elegant solutions. She stood in the orbital construction yard, gesturing at the massive framework taking shape above Earth. Traditional space station construction takes years, Mingji explained to the assembled engineers and officials. The Concordat method requires expensive materials shipped from multiple worlds, specialized equipment, and constant maintenance. We took a different approach. She pointed at the growing station. We adapted techniques from deep-sea construction and combined them with nanomaterial assembly. We can grow a station rather than build it piece by piece. This station will be completed in 4 months instead of 4 years. The cost is 1/10 what the aliens would charge. It's better, her assistant added. More efficient life support, better radiation shielding, and modular design that allows easy expansion. Mingji nodded. We're not just matching alien technology. We're surpassing it. The Galactic Concordat called an emergency session. In the grand chamber where Juan had walked out weeks before, the elder species gathered to discuss the human problem. The Maltuvian representative was nearly incoherent with rage. They are expanding into unclaimed territories. They are contacting primitive species. They are building infrastructure that rivals our own. This cannot be permitted. The Recton delegate pulsed with agitation. We must enforce sanctions, cut them off from all trade, impose a blockade on human space. The Ithros ambassador shifted uncomfortably. We have significant trade relationships with human colonies. Such actions would harm our own economy. Then you side with them? The Recton demanded. I side with reality, the Ithros replied. Look at what they have accomplished in weeks. They do not need us anymore. Perhaps they never did. The Maltuvian slammed his appendages on the table. Then we use military force. We remind these primates why the elder species rule the galaxy. A formal ultimatum was transmitted to Earth. Humanity must cease all expansion, return to their designated territories, and resume negotiations under Concordat terms. If they refused, consequences would follow. Giwan received the message in her office. She read it twice, then composed her response. It was a single word, transmitted across every communication channel in known space. No, the aliens could not comprehend such defiance. For thousands of years they had made demands and others had obeyed. The concept of a species simply refusing their authority was beyond their understanding. Admiral Liu Taiyang prepared humanity's defense fleets. He was an old warrior who had fought in a dozen conflicts and learned hard lessons about survival. He knew the elder species had larger fleets and more powerful weapons. He also knew that wars were not won by the strongest, but by the smartest. They will come with overwhelming force, Taiyang told his officers. They expect us to panic and surrender. Instead, we show them that humanity fights differently. Human warships were not built like alien vessels. Where the elder species relied on massive shields and heavy armor, human engineers created smaller, faster ships. They were designed for hit-and-run tactics, for exploiting weaknesses, for winning through speed and coordination rather than brute force. But the expected attack never came. The Maltuvian Empire tried to organize a blockade, but discovered that their ships could not keep up with human vessels. The new FTL drives gave humanity a speed advantage that made traditional naval tactics obsolete. More importantly, cracks appeared in the Concordat alliance. The Ithros Commonwealth quietly informed Earth that they would not participate in any military action. 3 minor species sent secret messages offering neutrality. The united front of the elder species was crumbling. In her laboratory, a scientist named Yunji made another breakthrough. She had been studying alien biology samples for years, and she noticed something interesting. The elder species had become dependent on technology to the point where they were biologically weaker than their ancestors. Generations of comfortable living had made them fragile. Humans, by contrast, evolved on a death world. High gravity, aggressive microorganisms, extreme weather, predators at every level of the food chain. Humanity had to be tough just to survive. That toughness extended beyond the physical. Human psychology was built for stress, for problem-solving under pressure, for adapting to impossible situations. The elder species had forgotten how to struggle. Humanity had never stopped. Commander Sora sent her latest reports to Earth. She had contacted 12 more isolated species. All of them were interested in working with humanity. None of them wanted anything to do with the Concordat. "They're calling us the Frontier Coalition," Sora reported. 15 species so far, all committed to mutual cooperation and fair trade. "We're building something new out here, something that doesn't rely on hierarchy and domination." Jiwan reviewed the reports with satisfaction. Everything was proceeding better than expected. The galaxy was changing, and the elder species could not stop it. They had built their power on monopolies and intimidation. Humanity had shattered the monopolies and refused to be intimidated. In the Concordat chambers, the debates grew more heated. Some wanted war. Others wanted negotiation. A few quietly suggested that perhaps humanity had a point about the old system being broken. The galaxy held its breath and waited to see what would happen. Next, the Maltuvian Empire decided to make an example of humanity. They assembled a battle fleet. 20 warships that represented centuries of military tradition and technological superiority. The plan was simple: blockade the human colony of New Busan and force Earth to negotiate. Admiral Taiyang watched the enemy fleet approach on his tactical displays. Behind him, his command staff monitored every detail. He commanded only 12 ships, but he was not worried. The Maltuvians were following their standard playbook, the same tactics they had used for 1,000 years. "They're deploying in formation Delta 7, his tactical officer reported. "Shields at maximum, weapons charged. They expect us to either surrender or engage head-on. Then we'll disappoint them," Taiyang said. "Captain GA, you're cleared to proceed." Captain GA commanded 3 of the smallest ships in the fleet, frigates that the Maltuvians probably considered insignificant. She was young for a captain, but had proven herself in countless simulations and real combat situations. Her ships broke formation and accelerated toward the enemy fleet at speeds the aliens could not match. The Maltuvians tried to track them, but human ships moved differently. They did not follow predictable paths. They did not maintain standard combat formations. They darted and weaved like birds avoiding a predator. Jihee's weapons were not designed to destroy. They were designed to disrupt. Electromagnetic pulse charges, signal jammers, and sophisticated viruses that could infiltrate alien computer systems. In the space of 10 minutes, our 3 frigates had disabled the targeting systems of half the Maltuvian fleet. The enemy ships were still intact. Their shields were still strong, their weapons were still charged, but they could not aim. They could not coordinate. They could not even communicate with each other properly. Taiyang's larger ships moved in and finished the job. They attached boarding pods to the disabled vessels and demanded surrender. The Maltuvian commander, sitting in his powerless flagship, had no choice but to comply. Not a single ship was destroyed. Not a single life was lost. But the message was sent. Humanity could fight, and they would win. The incident was broadcast across the galaxy. Within hours, the Maltuvian stock markets collapsed completely. Their military reputation, built over millennia, evaporated in a single battle. Other species began questioning whether the elder races were really as powerful as they claimed. In the aftermath, Dr. Sunho received an unexpected communication. He was humanity's leading expert on alien cultures, and he had spent years studying the social structures of the Concordat. The message was encrypted and routed through a dozen neutral relays to hide its origin. Ambassador Gi Yuan should read this, he told his assistant. The message was from Ambassador Threlvin of the Korvath Union. The Korvath were a minor species within the Concordat, always overshadowed by the elder races. Threlvin's people had advanced technology and strong trade networks, but they were treated as second-class members of the galactic community. We have watched humanity's actions with great interest, the message read. What you did at New Busan proved something important. The elder species are not invincible. They maintain power through intimidation and control of resources. You have shown that alternatives exist. Many of us would like to discuss those alternatives. G1 arranged a secret meeting on Freehold 7, an independent trading station in neutral space. She arrived with a small delegation and minimal security. If this was a trap, she wanted to know. It was not a trap. Threlvin arrived with representatives from 6 other species. All minor members of the Concordat who were tired of being dominated. They met in a private conference room, away from prying eyes and listening devices. The Concordat is a prison, Threlvin said without preamble. His species resembled crystalline humanoids, and his voice had a musical quality when translated. They control technology, trade routes, and information. They decide who prospers and who struggles. We are tired of asking permission to advance our own civilizations. A delegate from the Forvex species nodded. She was tall and covered in feathers that changed color with her emotions. Humanity offered fair trade to the Varani. No exploitation, no control, just mutual benefit. We have never seen the elder species operate that way. What are you proposing? Juan asked. An alternative alliance, Threlvin replied. Species who believe in cooperation rather than domination. Fair trade instead of monopolies. Equal representation instead of hierarchy. We cannot build this alone. The elder species would crush us. But with humanity, Yuan considered carefully. This was a massive step, potentially the beginning of a new galactic order. But it was also dangerous. The Concordat would view such an alliance as an existential threat. I need to consult with my government, she said. But personally, I think this is exactly what the galaxy needs. While these negotiations progressed, the Concordat itself began to fracture. The Ithros Commonwealth had extensive trade relationships with human colonies. Their economy depended on human resources and manufactured goods. When the Concordat Council voted to impose total sanctions on humanity, the Ithros representative stood up and walked out. We will not destroy our own economy to preserve your pride, the Ithros ambassador announced. The Ithros Commonwealth withdraws from this decision and will continue normal trade relations with humanity. The Recton delegate was furious. You betray the Concordat. You betray millennia of tradition? I preserve my people's future, the Ithros replied. That is my duty. The Recton Collective responded by severing diplomatic ties with the Ethros Commonwealth. Overnight, centuries of cooperation evaporated. The Maltuvian Empire tried to remain neutral, but their economy was in freefall. They had no leverage left. On Earth, strategic analyst Dong Yun presented his findings to the government. He was a quiet man who preferred data to politics. But his analysis was devastating. Concordat's entire power structure is based on artificial scarcity, Dong Yun explained, showing charts and graphs. They control FTL technology, so they control who can expand. They control trade routes, so they control who can prosper. They control information, so they control what species know about each other. Humanity broke the first monopoly with our FTL breakthrough. Now the entire system is collapsing. How long until the Concordat falls apart completely? President Hanben asked. Depends on how many species join our alternative alliance. If we can offer real benefits, real freedom, most of the minor species will defect. The elder races will be left ruling an empire of 3 species instead of 300. Then we make sure our alliance offers everything the Concordat does not. Freedom, equality, and opportunity. Engineer Minji's construction teams were working overtime. The new space station above Earth was completed ahead of schedule, and she immediately started planning more. But now she had help. Korvath engineers contacted her with designs that complemented human techniques. Forvex scientists shared material science breakthroughs. Varani technicians offered unique solutions to power distribution problems. This is what cooperation looks like, Mingi said to her team. Not one species dominating others, but everyone contributing their strengths. Commander Sora pushed deeper into frontier space. Her fleet had grown to 30 ships, a mix of human vessels and ships from allied species. They were exploring at a pace that would have been impossible for the Concordat. New colonies were established every week. New trade routes opened constantly, but not everything was peaceful. In a distant system, Sora sensors detected unknown ships. They were not Concordat vessels. They belonged to the Vryn sovereignty, an aggressive species that operated beyond the borders of known space. The Vryn did not negotiate. They attacked. Captain Jihei's frigate took heavy damage in the first exchange. The Vryn used weapons that bypassed human shields and struck directly at hull armor. Sora called for reinforcements and prepared for a serious fight. They are not like the Concordat species, her tactical officer reported. They do not posture or threaten. They just attack with everything they have. Sora ordered her fleet into defensive formation. Then we show them what humanity learned in our colony wars. No mercy, no retreat. We fight until they break, or we do. The battle raged for hours. Human ships were faster and more maneuverable, but Vryn weapons were devastatingly effective. Losses mounted on both sides. Just when it seemed the humans might have to retreat, reinforcements arrived. Captain Deho, now commanding a full battle group, entered the system with 15 warships. The combined human fleet outnumbered the Vryn attackers and forced them to withdraw. But it was not a clean victory. 3 human ships were destroyed and 2 more were crippled. Sora stood on her damaged bridge and surveyed the aftermath. The galaxy is more dangerous than we thought. The Concordat's weakness created a power vacuum. Species like the Vryn are expanding into that vacuum. Back at the Concordat headquarters, Counselor Vexthrin watched the reports from the Vryn conflict with conflicting emotions. He was the same Recton who had insulted humanity months ago, the one who called them upstart primates. Now he saw those same primates fighting battles that the Concordat would have avoided, for the first time in his long life. Vextrin wondered if the elder species had made a mistake. Chief. Diplomat Youngmi stood before representatives of 23 species gathered on Freehold 7 station. Some were former Concordat members who had officially withdrawn. Others were isolated civilizations that humanity had contacted in frontier space. All of them shared one thing. They were tired of the old ways. We propose the Frontier Coalition, Youngmi announced, her voice carrying clearly through the translation systems. An alliance based on principles the Concordat forgot centuries ago. Equal representation regardless of military power. Mandatory technology sharing among members. Democratic decision-making, where every species has a vote. No hierarchies, no elder races, no subject peoples. A murmur ran through the assembled delegates. The Korvath ambassador Threlvin stood. These are revolutionary ideas. The elder species will view this as a direct threat. They already view us as threats, Youngmi replied. The question is whether we face them divided or united. Alone, each of our species can be pressured, sanctioned, or threatened into compliance. Together, we represent an alternative that the entire galaxy can see. The Forvex delegates' feathers shifted to a thoughtful blue. What guarantees do we have? How do we know humanity will not simply become the new dominant species? Youngmi smiled. Because we wrote those protections into the charter. Humanity gets one vote, same as everyone else. We cannot veto decisions. We cannot impose our will. If we try, any member can call for our removal from the coalition. We are proposing genuine equality because we believe it makes us all stronger. The vote was unanimous. The Frontier Coalition became official, with 17 member species signing the charter that day. Within a week, 6 more species requested membership. Dr. Heinwu was not resting on his earlier success. His team had moved on to an even bigger challenge, terraforming. The Concordat method for making hostile worlds habitable took centuries and required massive resources. Hunhua believed there was a better way. He stood in his laboratory with soil samples from a dozen death worlds. Earth's deep oceans host life in conditions that should be impossible. Extreme pressure, no light, toxic chemicals, yet life thrives. We can use those same principles. His assistant, a young researcher named Gina, examined microscopic organisms under a scanner. These extremophiles can survive in almost anything. If we modify them to process atmospheric toxins, exactly, Hyunwoo said, we seed a planet with engineered microorganisms. They multiply and gradually transform the atmosphere. What takes the Concordat 200 years, we can do in 20. The first test was conducted on a barren world in Coalition space. Hyunwoo's team released billions of modified organisms into the atmosphere. Within weeks, atmospheric composition began changing. Within months, the toxic haze started clearing. The process worked. News of the terraforming breakthrough spread quickly. Dozens of species had worlds in their territory that were considered worthless. Now those worlds had potential. The Coalition's territory effectively doubled overnight. Strategic. Analyst Dong Yun continued tracking the Concordat's collapse. His latest report made for grim reading if you were an elder species. The Maltuvian Empire is fragmenting, Dong Yun reported to President Hanbin. 3 of their subject species have declared independence and applied for coalition membership. Their economy contracted 40% in the last quarter. Their military cannot maintain its current size without the revenue from FTL licensing. What about the Recton Collective? Worse, they split into 3 factions. One faction wants to join the coalition. Another wants to maintain the old order. The third has withdrawn from galactic affairs completely. They are fighting among themselves now. And the Ithros Commonwealth. They have opened formal trade negotiations with us. They recognize that their future lies with the coalition, not the Concordat. Hanbin leaned back in his chair. We broke their system in less than a year. I almost feel sorry for them. Do not feel too sorry, Dong Yun said. They had centuries to reform. They chose pride over progress. They are facing the consequences of their own choices. Commander Sora was rebuilding her fleet after the battle with the Vryn, but this time she had help from coalition allies. Korvath shipyards produced hulls using their advanced materials. Forvex weapon systems were integrated into human designs. Varani engineers contributed sensor technology. The result was a new class of warship that combined the best. Features of multiple species technology. These coalition vessels were superior to anything the Concordat could field, but the Vryn were not finished. They launched another offensive, this time with a much larger fleet. They targeted a newly established coalition colony on the world of Sajong Station. Captain. Daeho arrived with the defense fleet, but the Vryn had learned from their first encounter. They used different tactics, different weapons. The battle turned brutal. Deho stood on his bridge as explosions rocked the ship. Damage report. Shields at 30%. Hull breaches on decks 4 and 7. Weapons still operational. A Vryn battleship loomed on the view screen, 3 times the size of Deho's flagship. Its weapons tore through Coalition ships with terrifying efficiency. Deho made a decision that would have horrified the risk-averse Concordat species. All ships, ramming speed. Target that battleship, sir. The casualties will be worth it if we stop that ship from reaching the colony. Execute. The Coalition fleet charged directly at the Vryn battleship. It was a tactic born of desperation and courage. Half the ships were destroyed in the approach, but the survivors slammed into the battleship's shields at full speed. The combined impact overloaded the Vryn's defensive systems. Deho's ship suffered critical damage, but the battleship was crippled. The remaining Vryn ships, seeing their flagship disabled, retreated. The colony was saved. Deho pulled himself from the wreckage of his command chair. Around him, the bridge crew worked to contain fires and hull breaches. They had won, but the cost was high. Good people had died following his orders, but Sajong Station still stood. Thousands of colonists were alive because of that sacrifice. In the hard calculus of war, it was worth it. The Vryn, impressed by humanity's willingness to accept casualties, requested a ceasefire. They sent an ambassador to negotiate. It turned out the Vryn respected courage above all else. The Concordat species avoided conflict whenever possible, which the Vryn interpreted as weakness. Humanity fought, accepted losses, and kept fighting. That earned their respect. We will not attack Coalition territory again, the Vryn ambassador declared. Perhaps we can discuss trade instead of war. It was not a formal alliance, but it was peace. And that was enough. Back on Earth, Counselor Vextron of the Recton Collective appeared on every major news network. His crystalline growths pulsed with an emotion that human experts identified as shame. I was wrong, Vextron said simply. When I called humanity upstart primates, I spoke from arrogance and ignorance. I have spent months studying what your species has accomplished. You did not just match our technology. You surpassed it. You did not just survive our sanctions. You thrived. Most importantly, you built something better than what we had. He paused, his crystals dimming. The Concordat is dying because it deserved to die. We ruled through fear and control. You lead through cooperation and respect. The Recton Collective formally apologizes to humanity and requests permission to open diplomatic relations with the Frontier Coalition.
The
broadcast ended. Giwan watched it from her office and felt a strange mix of emotions. Victory, certainly. Vindication, absolutely. But also something like pity. The elder species had ruled for so long that they forgot how to do. Anything else? A communication request arrived from the Concordat. Giwan almost ignored it, but curiosity won. The message was from the Maltuvian Emperor himself. Ambassador Giwan, the Maltuvian Empire wishes to propose a new arrangement. We acknowledge our past mistakes and ask for an opportunity to join the Frontier Coalition. We are prepared to meet all membership requirements, including the dismantling of our caste system and the granting of equal rights to all species within our territory. Giwan read the message twice. The proud Maltuvians, who had treated humanity like primitives, were now begging to join the alliance they had mocked. She forwarded the message to President Hanbin with a simple note. The galaxy is changing faster than anyone predicted. Engineer Minji's latest project was Unity Station, a massive hub being built in neutral space. It used construction techniques from 7 different species and incorporated designs from 12 more. When completed, it would be the largest artificial structure in the galaxy, surpassing anything the Concordat had ever built. More importantly, it would be open to all species. No hierarchies, no restrictions, no discrimination. A symbol of what the galaxy could become when species worked together instead of competing for dominance. Gi Wan stood on the observation deck of a human ship and watched Unity Station taking shape. Behind her, representatives from dozens of species worked together, sharing ideas and solving problems. "We did it," Chief Diplomat Youngmi said quietly. "We changed everything." "No," Jiwan replied. "We just refused to accept things as they were. The galaxy changed itself." 1 year after Ambassador Giwan walked out of the Concordat negotiations, the galaxy was unrecognizable. The old order had crumbled, and something new was rising from its ashes. The Frontier Coalition now included 43 species. Their combined territory covered half the known galaxy. More applications arrived every week from civilizations tired of Concordat control or isolated species eager to join the galactic community on equal terms. Engineer Minji stood at the observation window of Unity Station and marveled at what they had built. The station was a city in space, large enough to house 500,000 beings from 100 different species. Ships from across the galaxy docked at its ports daily, bringing trade goods, cultural exchanges, and new ideas. "The Concordat headquarters is a ghost town now," Minji's assistant reported. "Most species withdrew their embassies. The few that remain are just waiting for the formal dissolution." Minji nodded. The station that once represented galactic power now symbolized its obsolescence. Unity Station was everything the Concordat headquarters was not: open, diverse, and built on cooperation rather than domination. "How long until the commercial district is operational?" Minji asked. 3 weeks. "We have merchants from 70 species requesting permits. Trade volume projections exceed the old Concordat markets by 40%. The economic shift was dramatic. The Maltuvian Empire, once the wealthiest civilization in space, had requested emergency financial assistance. Their economy could not survive without the revenue from technology licensing, and that monopoly was gone forever. The Emperor himself arrived at Unity Station to present his formal petition for coalition membership. He was an imposing figure, tall even for a Maltuvian, with ceremonial markings that indicated centuries of lineage. But his proud bearing was tempered by necessity. Ambassador Giwan met him in a conference room that deliberately had no throne, no elevated seats, no symbols of hierarchy. Just a simple table where all participants sat as equals. "Your terms are harsh," the Emperor said, reviewing the membership requirements. "They are fair," Jiwan corrected. "You must dismantle your caste system. All species in your territory must have equal rights and representation. Your subject peoples must be given the choice to remain or establish independence. These are the same terms every coalition member accepted. Our society has functioned this way for 3,000 years. It is collapsing now. You can adapt and survive, or cling to the old ways and fall apart. The choice is yours." The Emperor was silent for a long moment. Pride warred with pragmatism in his expression. Finally, he nodded. "We will accept your terms. The Maltuvian Empire will reform." It was a moment of profound change. The species that had treated humanity with contempt now submitted to human terms. But Jawan felt no triumph, only a sense of rightness. This was not about revenge or dominance. It was about building something better. 3 of the Maltuvian subject species immediately declared independence and joined the coalition as separate members. 2 others chose to remain part of a reformed Maltuvian state. All were granted equal representation in coalition affairs. The Rectin Collective's situation was more complicated. Councillor Vexthrin led the reform faction that wanted to join the coalition, but he faced opposition from traditionalists who viewed any change as betrayal. Dr. Sunho, humanities expert on alien cultures, worked closely with Vexthrin to navigate the political complexities. "Your people are afraid," Sunho explained. "They built their identity around being an elder species, a ruler of others. Accepting equality feels like surrendering that identity. But we have no choice," Vexthrin replied, his crystals pulsing with frustration. "The old system is dead. We can join the new order or fade into irrelevance. Then show them the benefits. The coalition is not about making everyone the same. It is about each species contributing their strengths. The Rectin have advanced theoretical physics and energy manipulation technology. Those skills are valuable. You do not lose your identity by sharing it. Vextran took that advice. He organized scientific exchanges where Rectin researchers worked alongside human physicists and Korvath engineers. The collaboration produced breakthroughs that none of them could have achieved alone. Slowly, the Rectin people saw the value in cooperation. The Reform faction won the internal struggle. The Rectin collective split into two entities, a Reformed collective that joined the coalition, and a traditionalist remnant that withdrew into isolation. It was painful, but necessary. Admiral Taiyang oversaw the formation of the Coalition Defense Force, combined military drawn from all member species. It was a massive undertaking. Different species had different tactical doctrines, different communication protocols, different ideas about warfare. Captain Ga commanded the first mixed species squadron. Her crew included humans, Korvath, reformed Maltuvians, Forvex, and even some Rectin volunteers. The first training exercises were chaotic. Maltuvians want to advance in formation, Ga reported to Taiyang. The Korvath prefer hit-and-run tactics. The Forvex think we should avoid combat entirely and use electronic warfare. Nobody agrees on anything, good Taiyang replied. If they all agreed, we would just have one tactical approach. Make them learn from each other. The Maltuvian discipline, combined with Korvath's agility and Forvex technical skills, creates something stronger than any single approach. It took months, but eventually the mixed squadrons found their rhythm. They learned to combine their strengths and cover each other's weaknesses. When the Vryn sovereignty launched another probe into coalition space, they faced a defense force unlike anything they had seen before. The Vryn, recognizing that the coalition was more than just humanity now, agreed to formal peace negotiations. They even expressed interest in limited trade relations. It was not friendship, but it was stability. Dr. Hyanwu's research team, now including scientists from a dozen species, achieved another breakthrough. Working with Rectin theoretical physicists and Korvath engineers, they developed instantaneous communication across interstellar distances. The implications were staggering. Ships could maintain real-time contact across the galaxy. Colonies could coordinate instantly. The Coalition's territory could function as a unified entity despite spanning hundreds of light-years. The old Concordat's communication networks relied on relay stations and message drones. Instantaneous communication made those systems obsolete. The last pillar of Concordat, technological superiority, collapsed. On Earth, President Hanben addressed a joint session of the Coalition Assembly via the new communication system. Representatives from across the galaxy watched in real time, something that would have been impossible a year ago. The Galactic Concordat served its purpose for centuries, Hanben said. It brought order to chaos and established frameworks for cooperation. But like all institutions, it became rigid and self-serving. It forgot that the purpose of government is to serve the governed, not to maintain power for its own sake. He paused, letting the translation systems catch up. The Frontier Coalition is not perfect. We will make mistakes. We will face challenges. But we are built on principles that can adapt and grow. Equality, cooperation, and mutual respect. These are not human values. They are universal values that every sapient species can embrace. The assembly erupted in approval. Representatives from dozens of species signaled agreement in their various ways. The Concordat era was officially over. 5 years after humanity walked away from the negotiating table, the formal dissolution of the Galactic Concordat took place. The remaining elder species petitioned to join the Frontier Coalition as equal members. There was no drama, no final stand, just a quiet acknowledgement that the old ways were finished. Ambassador Giwan attended the ceremony on Unity Station. She stood among representatives from 100 species, all of them equal, all of them participants in building a new galactic order. Commander Sora sent a transmission from the frontier. Her exploration fleets, now including ships from dozens of coalition species, had pushed into regions of space that no one had ever explored. They were discovering new worlds, contacting new species, expanding the boundaries of known civilization. We found a civilization that just invented radio, Sora reported. They call themselves the Moran, according to Concordat policy. They would be observed but not contacted for another 1,000 years. What are our orders? Jiwan smiled. Make contact. Offer friendship. Show them they are not alone. That is the Coalition way. Captain Deho, watching from Earth, allowed himself a rare moment of satisfaction. He had fought in the colony wars, survived the Vryn conflicts, and seen humanity transform from a struggling species into a galactic power. But more than that, he had watched them help transform the entire galaxy. We did not just earn our place among the stars, Deho said to his officers. We changed what that place could mean. Engineer Minji completed her latest project, a new generation of space stations that incorporated techniques from 20 different species. These stations were so advanced that they made the old Concordat infrastructure look primitive by comparison. Coalition member species could build them freely, without licenses or restrictions. Dr. Han Wu's team continued making breakthroughs. The combination of human ingenuity, Recton theory, Korvath engineering, and contributions from dozens of other species created an explosion of innovation. Technology advanced faster in 5 years than it had in the previous century under Concordat control. In the Coalition Assembly, Chief Diplomat Young Mi presented the latest membership applications. 30 more species wanted to join, including some from beyond the old Concordat borders. The galaxy was uniting not through conquest or coercion, but through voluntary cooperation. We are building something unprecedented, Young Mi told the Assembly. A truly galactic civilization where every species has a voice, where knowledge flows freely, where cooperation creates prosperity. This is what the Concordat could have been if its founders had chosen differently. Councillor Vextrin stood to speak. His crystals glowed with what humans had learned to recognize as determination. I was there when humanity walked out of negotiations. I was the one who insulted them, who called them upstart primates. I was wrong in ways I could not have imagined. He gestured to the diverse assembly. Humanity did not just prove they did not need us. They proved we needed them, not their technology or their military. We needed their perspective. We needed someone to show us that the old ways were not the only ways. The assembly signaled agreement. The Recton, who once embodied the Concordat's arrogance, now championed the Coalition's principles. Ambassador. Giwan walked through Unity Station's observation deck. She stopped at a window that showed ships from 100 species moving in peaceful coordination. Human vessels alongside former enemies, former subjects, and newly discovered civilizations. A young diplomatic aide named Hiron joined her. Ambassador, do you ever regret walking out that day? It was such a risk. Juan smiled. I regret that it was necessary, but I do not regret doing it. Sometimes you cannot negotiate your way to change. Sometimes you have to walk away from a bad situation and build something better, and if it had not worked, if humanity had failed, then we would have tried something else. That is what humans do. We adapt. We overcome. We never stop trying. In the distance, a fleet of Coalition vessels prepared to depart for the frontier. They were heading toward unexplored space, carrying representatives from 50 species. The exploration mission would last years and chart thousands of new systems. Captain Ga commanded the flagship. She stood on her bridge and watched her diverse crew work together with practiced efficiency. Humans, Korvath, Recton, Maltuvians, and dozens of others, all united in common purpose. All ships report ready, her first officer announced. Then, let us show the galaxy what cooperation can accomplish, Ga said. Set course for the frontier. The fleet jumped to FTL, disappearing into the vast unknown. Behind them, the Coalition continued to grow and prosper. Ahead of them, infinite possibilities awaited. The age of empires was over. The age of cooperation had begun. And it all started because one species refused to negotiate their dignity